And then you have the cranium, vertebrae. Do you know what your shoulder blade is called? Actually, I'm sorry, it's your collarbone, not your shoulder blade. It's pointing to your collar right there. Do you know what the scientific name of the collar? Yeah, clavicle. Yeah, so clavicle is your collarbone. And then going behind the clavicle right here, your shoulder blade. Scapula, that's right. So you wear your scapular around your shoulders. Your scapula is the name of your shoulder. Your arm bone up here, humerus, good. Also called your funny bone.
Wait, where's your acromion?
Your what?
The acromial, where is that?
The acromial?
Yeah.
So the acromial would be, it's just the name of your shoulder point, but it's not actually a bone.
Okay.
It's just, so there's names for areas of your body, but they're not also bone names. Okay, so your humerus, your top arm bone, then you down here, you have two lower arm bones. Radius and ulna. And do you know which one is which?
Ulna is the one that's close to your body, right? If you're like that.
So the way I remember it is PU, like, because pinky to ulna is how I remember it. So your pinky side is your ulna, and then your radius would be your thumb side. So you have, so this right here, you see your thumb, so that would be your radius, pinky side, your ulna. Your wrist bones, carpals. Yeah. Carpal tunnel syndrome is when your wrist is hurting. So those are your carpals. What about the bones that are above your wrist that make up your palm? Not your fingers, because so what you have, so you have your fingers right here, right? But then you also have bones right here that make up your palm.
Are they metacarpals?
Metacarpals. Now your knuckles would just be where the bones end. Like when you feel like your knuckles is where your fingers and your metacarpals begin. So metacarpals make up your palm. And then you have your finger bones, phalanges. That's also what your toes are called. Moving on to this area. What is that bone called? Pelvis. Then you have your vertebrae. What about this bone right here between the pelvic bones? Yeah, it does. Sacrum. And then you have your tailbone at the end of there called the coccyx. Your thigh bone, femur. Then you have two leg bones right here. You have your larger one makes up your shin, tibia, and then fibula, good. You have your ankle bones. What is it called? Begins with a T. Tarsal. So tarsals, ankles, and then what about makes up your feet, the sole of your feet? So those are metatarsals. So just like your hand has carpals, metacarpals, your foot has tarsals and then metatarsals. And then phalanges will be your toes. So they're numbered 1 through 5. So you say your first metatarsal is your toe bone, second metatarsal, and so on down to your fifth metatarsal. Oh, I missed the kneecap. What's that called? Patella? Is that everything on here? I think I got everything. So that's an overview. Now, of course, we have smaller bones, like each bone in your wrist is named. We'll go through those later. You have several bones that make up your face, which we haven't talked about, in your skull. You have, 3 bones in your ears that you can't see on here. So there's smaller bones that you don't see in here, but that's, and also you have, your ribs. That's 24 bones right there. Oh, here's one we didn't talk about. This bone right here that connects your ribs. Sternum, good. That just shows you all the bones. Your thoracic cage is the name for your ribs and your sternum together. Then you have the pelvic girdle, which you can see right here, the pelvis along with the sacrum. Pectoral girdle would be your shoulder and your collarbone together. Everything else I think we've already covered on here. There's two main subdivisions of your skeleton. There's the axial skeleton, which you can see in purple on here. That's the skull, vertebral column, your ribs. So basically it's your neck, your head, and your trunk, and all the bones that are in that area. So the three main parts are the skull, vertebral column, and thoracic cage. The thoracic cage, again, is just your ribs along with your sternum. How'd you get this down? Skull is also called your cranium. And the hyoid bone is also part of the axial skeleton, which is your throat area. It's above your voice box. So it connects to your tongue. That's kind of gross looking, but your bones connect to muscles and they move to make muscles move. So your muscle from your tongue down connects to your hyoid bone right here, which is what allows movement in your throat and in your tongue. So it's commonly broken if somebody strangles you. So that's one way they can tell if somebody's been murdered by strangulation or if they committed suicide by hanging themselves, because a normal hanging wouldn't break the hyoid bone, but strangulation almost always does. So if you were to like put your hand around your throat, you can feel it. If you were to feel the very back of it, you can see right here, it's just right here. So it's a movable bone. It's not connected to anything besides your muscles. And so it doesn't stay in one place, but it moves with your tongue. Vertebral column, which also would include the sacrum between the pelvic bones, and then the tailbone called the coccyx. And the thoracic cage, which would contain your 24 ribs, and then your sternum in the middle that connects the rib bones together. And the rings right here, your windpipe, that's your voice box above your windpipe. The Adam's apple is the visible part of the voice box. And it's made of cartilage and it connects right below your hyoid bone. Does everybody have that down? The other part of the skeleton, appendicular skeleton, would contain all the other bones, the arms, legs, and the bones that anchor them. So your collarbone, shoulder blades, pelvic bones that connect the legs and the arms to the body. So it includes the pectoral girdle, which would be the collarbone, the scapula. So the collarbone is also called the clavicle. The scapula is called the shoulder blades. So those two parts connect to the arms. And that connects to the upper limbs, which would be your arms. That includes the humerus, the radius and ulna, you have 16 carpals. That would be for both hands. You have 8 on each side. You have 10 total metacarpals, so you have 1 metacarpal per finger. And then 28 phalanges in total, 14 on each hand. So you have 3 bones in every finger except your thumb. You have 2 in your thumb. So what's nice is, you have 10 metacarpals, 28 phalanges that all just have the same name. And so those are easy to memorize. The carpals do have their own names, but you only have to memorize 8 of those because they're just duplicate on both sides. So you do have a lot of bones, 206 bones, but a lot of these are duplicates of each other. So memorization is not as hard as it might seem. Oh, this is, wait, is it? No, sorry, it's not. I thought it was the same one. Then move down to the lower body. Pelvic girdle is your hip bones on either side right here in tan. And then that connects to your lower limbs, femur, your thigh bone. Tibia is your shin bone. Fibula on the side makes up the heel portion, and the ankle on the outside. Patella, your kneecap. Tarsals, your ankle bones. Metatarsals make up your feet. Phalanges make up your toes. And so that covers the 206 bones in the body, just as an overview. There's a lot of smaller bones that we haven't talked about in the skull. They make up the face, but that's the major bones in the body. Babies have a lot more bones, 300 bones. But as they get older, the bones fuse together. And as an adult, you have about 100 less bones. So there are a lot of gaps between the bones for a child. Cartilage fills the gaps until it becomes bone. So that's why babies and even small children, they have a hard time with strength and also just having precision in tasks because they don't have the solid bones that adults have. They have cartilage, which is more flexible, and so they have a hard time controlling movement. Pass out a couple of worksheets for you to do while you're taking notes. So there's 3 worksheets that are passed around. Just take one of each. So this is going to be the same worksheet, but we're going to do 2 different things with it. So you'll have 2 of these ones. And then actually there's 2 papers on here too. So you're going to have 4 papers in total. So let's take 2 of these ones because it's 2 separate ones. Take 2 of these. So the skeleton coloring worksheet is going to be 2 of the same, but then you're going to have 2 other pages that are different. So you should have 4 in total pages. Yes, you're going to have 2 of the skeleton worksheets that are the same. Then you're going to have these 2 worksheets. So these 2 will be different. Yeah, these are different. So,
Oh, it's gonna be the same.
yeah, so they're gonna be the same skeleton worksheets, because we're gonna do different things with them.
Can I see the
You
skeleton?
want to, here, you want to
Yeah.
do these two? Okay.
Yeah, they're different.
Can I see the skeleton of which one has letters?
I got
only
it.
got one.
Oh.
Which one are we gonna take?
Oh, this is the one that's.
Okay. So for these ones, you should have, one is numbered, one that has letters on it. And then you should have two of these ones for the color. The lights back on. Okay, so for one of these worksheets, just color it like it says, to color the bones. But the other one, color just the axial skeleton in one color and label that color, and then color the other skeleton, appendicular skeleton, a different color, and label that as axial versus appendicular. Does that make sense?
No, you mean like the front, like the.
Yeah, so for one of these, because you have two of these worksheets. So for one of them, just color it like it tells you to, color the different bones. But for the other worksheet, just color just the axial skeleton one color. Which is in your book. Let's see what page that's on.
So for one of them, you want one color to be the entire skeleton?
Well, let me see, I mean, somebody's computer is really good. On page 146. I want you to do something like you see on page 146, where you see how you have blue as the axial skeleton and then tan appendicular skeleton. Do the same thing in one of these coloring worksheets. You color all of the appendicular skeleton one color, and you have to make a key where you say what color that is. And the other part, color a different color. So for one, you're labeling the bones. But the other one, you're not labeling the bones, you're just labeling the two parts of the skeleton. So we get that?
Yes.
And then for these ones, we just write in the names. So there's labels,